Hello you guys, today I'm going to do another video related to bilingualism and I hope you like it. If you haven't watched my first video on bilingualism where I talk about my definition of bilingualism, then what are you waiting for? Chop chop, come on! If this is the first video you watch of me, you're gonna think I'm creepy. So if you've seen the title of the video, you might have guessed that I'm going to talk about myths on bilingualism today because there's so much misinformation on the topic that I thought that today I would kind of try to clarify the entire situation. Call me linguistic man! Okay, that was not actually very funny. Sorry. Creepy. Something I'd like to clarify though for the purpose of this video and to avoid ambiguity is that by bilingualism I mean people that speak 2 or more languages in their everyday lives, and it doesn't matter if they're not perfectly fluent in these languages or if they might have an accent or if they haven't learnt it from birth. One of the most common myths on bilingualism is that bilingualism is a rare phenomenon, and it's simply not true. There are so many countries around the world, such as India or South Africa, where people grow up speaking many languages. It's only in Western countries such as the US, France, Portugal, Spain, etc., that people tend to only speak one language. Generally speaking, research papers on bilingualism estimate that about 50% of the world population speaks more than one language. So it's not that rare after all. Another myth that's very common is that bilingualism is only possible if you've learned your 2 or more languages since birth. So basically, if your 2 or more languages are your native languages. I suppose for this myth, it kind of depends on how you define bilingualism, but if you take my definition of bilingualism that I explained at the beginning of the video, then this myth is untrue. I mean, for example, me, I clearly am bilingual in English because I speak it almost, well, every day actually, and I have been for over 3 years. And how about the Polish author Joseph Conrad, who only learned English when he was in his 20s and wrote one of the most famous books ever, Heart of Darkness. The third myth I'd like to talk about is the fact that some people think that real bilinguals don't have an accent when they speak in their 2 languages. Well, me for example, and I'm not trying to make the video about me, it's just that I'm the only example I can think of. I'm technically 2 kinds of bilingual. I'm a native bilingual because I speak Portuguese and French natively. And when I speak Portuguese to Portuguese people, they often notice a French accent when I speak to them. Nothing big, but they can tell, like, you know, they're native speakers, so whoever sounds a bit different, they will know. And I'm also a non-native bilingual in that I learned English when I was older, and I clearly have an accent when I speak English, as you might be able to tell. So yeah, wrong! The fourth one I'd like to talk about, and it has to do more with child bilingualism, is that some people think that learning 2 languages at the same time will lead to language mixing. This myth is not exactly wrong, but it's not true either. Let me explain. I think this myth comes from the idea that bilingual children, when they're very young, they tend to mix the languages because they're still learning, so maybe at the early stages of bilingualism they will mix up the languages, they will not be able to tell the difference between English and French, for example. But eventually, as they grow up and as they get more proficient in their 2 languages, they will end up separating the 2 languages and they won't mix them anymore. I mean, clearly I'm not speaking Portuguese or French to you right now, am I? The last myth I'd like to talk about in this video is the fact that some people think that code mixing or code switching is a sign of bad bilingualism. Code switching or code mixing is basically when a bilingual will mix their languages. So for example, if I said, "Eu vou comer ao restaurante avec mes amis at 6 o'clock", then I've mixed 3 languages in one sentence. Personally, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I'm sure you will agree with me if you're bilingual, but in my case, I sometimes mix languages when, for example, if I start my sentence in English and then there's this word in French that exactly reflects what I'm trying to say, then I will want to use it in my English sentence because it just like translates my idea better. I mean, of course, if the person I'm talking to doesn't speak French, then I'm not gonna speak French to them, otherwise, like, they won't understand me, so that would just be stupid. So it's important to specify that bilinguals will not mix languages if they talk to people that don't understand the 2 or more languages, because otherwise communication won't happen. So I would say that generally speaking, it would only be bad if the bilingual could not control the way he or she mixes their languages, and that I know of, no one has ever done that. So it hasn't been reported that a bilingual could not differentiate between their 2 languages. So yeah, that's it for the weekly video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you enjoyed the video, then please feel free to like it, to subscribe to my channel, to like my Facebook page, and maybe drop a comment if you want, and I'll see you next week. Bye!